Hi everybody, this is Anne. If you're anything like me, whenever I'm out trimming back the bushes, I always wish there was a way to transfer those beautiful creations of nature to my clay, or at least save them for future projects. In this video, I'm going to experiment with techniques to do just that. I cut some of my favorite shaped leaves from around the yard, and I'll show you how to print designs with them on clay. To start, I thought I'd try to print them with just plain underglaze. I also thought I'd try mixing an underglaze ink by adding some CMC gum to the underglaze to see how that prints. Let's try using the leaf as a stamp to print a positive image. Typically, one side of the leaf makes a better impression of the veins. I'll be printing with the back side of this grape leaf. I rolled out a 1/4-inch slab and ribbed it smooth. First, I'll try printing the leaf with just the underglaze. I'm using my finger to smear a thin layer of the underglaze to the back side of the leaf. I gently laid the leaf on the clay and began working it down. I did have to work carefully so as not to contaminate the pristine clay with my dirty fingers. You can see that it takes a little practice as the underglaze is so wet. It did really make a nice print, but the wet underglaze also left some globby places. Let's try this again, this time using the underglaze ink. You can see that the CMC gum is set up and thickened the underglaze to a pudding consistency. I again coated the underside of the leaf with a thin layer of the ink. I laid it on the clay and worked all the edges and center down to the clay surface. The ink definitely makes a difference. I can get a lot more detail and less globbiness with the ink, but not as defined borders as the first printing. Remember, it may take you a few tries to get the hang of printing with leaves, so if you mess up, you can still sponge it off and go again. Now let's try this with a branch of leaves. Getting them to sit flat will be the challenge. I turned the leaves over and flattened out the leaves and branches a bit. Then I thought I'd apply the CMC gum underglaze mixture to the back of the leaves and the branch. I slowly set the branch on the clay, and where the leaves began to touch the clay is where I had to press them to the surface. I worked all the edges down with my fingers first as well as I could. I then used my brayer to work the leaves tight to the surface. I couldn't help smearing the ink from my fingers to the clay, so I took advantage of the leaves in place to sponge off the unwanted ink from around the leaves. Now when I removed the stem, it left this nice print. I got some great veins and a lot more detail than I expected. I thought I'd try some of the other leaves from my vines and bushes. Here are some of the other leaves I experimented with. A branch from one of our ornamental bushes and a big leaf from an air potato vine. I also tried Virginia creeper and the leaves from our sweet gum tree. I liked this heart-shaped leaf, and I wanted to try a fern branch. You can also get a nice design from the leaves by printing the negative of the plants. Again, starting with the smooth slab, I started by laying out the leaves and stem on the clay. The good thing is that I don't have to be as careful when laying it out on the clay. I can take my time and spread out the leaves as I want. I really want them to adhere tightly to the clay, so I rolled my brayer over them. Like the first experiment, I'm using straight underglaze. I dipped my damp sponge into the underglaze and pounced it gently, leaving a light coat of underglaze over the leaves. When I revealed what's underneath, I noticed that some of the underglaze leaked underneath the leaf. I actually do like the patterns it created, and if I had done a more solid coat of underglaze with the pouncing, those patterns would really stand out and become a totally separate design. Now let's try the same experiment, but using the underglaze ink this time. You need a lot more of the ink to cover the leaves as it's so stiff. When I revealed what's underneath, I got a perfect silhouette of the leaves, and the ink highlights the impressed vein lines. But let's say that you want to be able to print the leaves all year round, and of course, some of your favorite leaves are going to die away during the winter. You can print the leaves on mulberry or rice paper to create transfers. First, let's try printing the leaves on the paper using the underglaze. I coated the back of the leaf with a very thin layer of underglaze, making sure to push off the excess underglaze from the edges this time. I was very gentle in pushing the edges down as I didn't want my dirty fingers to contaminate the paper. I love that look, but pushing the excess underglaze also eliminated some of the border. Let's try this again with the underglaze ink. I got a much more detailed print from the ink and a better border, but they each have their own unique characteristics that I really like. Now let's see how they transfer. Now I'm working here on bone-dry clay, but it'll work just as well on fresh clay. I placed the leaves where I wanted them and began pouncing over them with a very damp sponge. I want that paper to really absorb the water to re-wet the underglaze on the other side. I'm putting a little pressure on the paper too, so the underglaze will transfer. When I lifted the paper, it left the perfect mirrored image. If you want to touch up borders or create the stems, just use a small fingernail brush and add those to the design. Let's see how this would work on a project. I'll be making a tray using this rectangular form. Using the underglaze ink, I'm printing the stem of leaves in each section along the top, sponging away any unwanted ink stain before removing the leaves. I thought the grape leaves would be pretty along each side. On the bottom section, I thought just the grapevine stem with the tendrils would be fun. I removed all the big leaves, then placed it along the bottom section. I also wanted to see if some of the Spanish moss would show up as well. I pressed it all into the clay first, then rolled it over with a brayer. I masked the top section with a piece of scrap paper, then began pouncing over the design. I then cut out the entire piece of clay. I placed the piece on a cushion foam. I centered the rectangular form over the design and pushed down on it to create this cool tray. Now here's a similar tray I made earlier. I brushed my white liner glaze around the positive images, then brushed Amico clear over the rest of the tray for this look. Now here's another sample I made using both the positive and negative images of the leaves. I glazed it in the same way as the first tray. Finally, I created this container by printing the sweet gum tree leaves around the center. I glazed the bottom with Amico honeydew glaze, and I brushed my white liner glaze on the top section. What are your favorite shaped leaves that you like to work with? Thanks to the newest members of our Little Street Pottery Research Facility team. If you'd like to join the team and earn a title, click on the Super Thanks button or the link to buy me a coffee. In any case, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time in the studio.